Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a massive piece of history that's literally hiding in plain sight right in the Thiruvalla region of Kerala. We're looking at a fascinating story about an ancient settlement that evolved into this incredibly organized socioeconomic hub. And the best part? We're actually going to look at the exact physical ledgers that recorded the whole shebang. Let's get right into it.
So you know when you're driving through a quiet, unassuming town, a place that completely flies under the tourist radar, and you just kind of wonder what its past looked like? Well, what if I told you that the quiet town of Thiruvalla was once a global economic powerhouse? The reality of this ancient settlement and the sheer scale of what went down here is honestly mind-blowing.
Let's look at a timeline to really grasp the scale of the history we're dealing with here. Thiruvalla is actually one of the oldest recorded settlements in the region. It's been continuously inhabited since 500 BCE. They've literally found Neolithic stone axes right in the area, and by the year 100 AD, global historians like Ptolemy and Pliny were already documenting the nearby Niranam port on the Palmer River. They described it as this massive pepper export hub that was fueling Roman trade. But, the real key to unlocking the day-to-day life of this ancient powerhouse came centuries later, in 1915, thanks to an absolutely incredible archaeological discovery.
Part 1. The Copper Plate Time Machine.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this 1915 discovery acts as a literal time machine for us. It lets us step way past the broad strokes of global trade and peer directly into the microscopic, day-to-day operations of a medieval society. What you're looking at are the Thiruvalla copper plates, which are sometimes called the Huzur treasury plates. Discovered at the Sreevallabhan temple, this is a collection of 43 medieval temple committee resolutions, dating mostly back to the 10th and 11th centuries AD. Imagine a modern corporate boardroom keeping meticulous meeting minutes, because that is exactly what these plates are. They are the ultimate ledger of a deeply complex society.
And what makes these plates even more historically vital is actually how they were written. They're engraved in the Vetajuthu script using some Grantha characters, which makes it a brilliant specimen of Middle Tamil. So why does this matter? Well, because it represents the oldest surviving prose in the Malayalam language family. It shows us exactly how language was being utilized in local agrarian administration just before Malayalam completely diverged from its Tamil roots.
Part 2. The Temple as Central Bank.
Okay, to really understand these plates, we have to completely reframe how we think about a medieval temple. The Sreevallabhan temple wasn't just a site for religious devotion, it was an absolute economic megacorporation. Right, so on one side, you have their deeply spiritual religious duties. The plates outline the practice of 5 daily pujas, a tradition that, amazingly, continues to this very day, along with detailed schedules for massive festivals like Onam and Vishu, and specific ritual offerings using rice, ghee, sandalwood, and incense. But then, on the other side, you have the corporate duties. The temple actually functioned as a massive landlord and a banking institution. They granted loans with interest and they received rents and fines in pure gold. This points to a highly monetized economy happening way, way earlier than we typically imagine for this era.
And because of this massive economic footprint, the temple wielded incredible political influence. The plates proudly record these fabulous donations from prominent monarchs far beyond their own borders. Kings like the Chola king Parantaka Virachola and the Chera Perumal king Bhaskara Ravi Manakuladitcha. The records also give us some of the very earliest historical mentions of the Nayars. This dates back to around 1030 AD, describing them fighting against invading Chola armies. We even see early evidence of matrilineal succession prevailing among certain families in the 11th century. So the temple's reach was just vast, and it operated with significant autonomy from the local kings.
Part 3. Medieval Education and Healthcare.
So the crucial point is, with great wealth came the ability to fund what was essentially a medieval welfare state. They managed expansive public utilities for the entire community, and the sheer scale of their educational efforts is just staggering. While some historical estimates suggest the wider settlement could have housed up to 1,500 students, the plates specifically confirmed that at least 175 dedicated students, known as Chatirar, resided directly within the temple's sala or school. And these inmates weren't just learning basic arithmetic, they were diving deep into intense, specialized curriculums covering the Vedas, Ayurveda, martial arts, and literary arts.
Now, to keep an educational machine of this scale running, you need massive endowments. You obviously can't house and teach 175 dedicated scholars for free. So the Thiruvalla copper plates outline these specific land grants with a capacity of at least 750 column of seed. These enormous agricultural yields guaranteed that the Chattir students were provided with daily meals and even special, elaborate feasts during festive occasions.
But education was really just one pillar. Healthcare was the other.
The temple sponsored a dedicated hospital to address the day-to-day medical requirements of the local population. And how do they fund it? Well, the plates lay out a very clear three-step financial flow. First, the temple assembly set apart specific properties called ley lands. Second, these lands were leased to tenants known as Karalar, who were responsible for paying a land lease called Patam. And third, the revenue generated from those leases was strictly earmarked and allocated to cover the hospital's day-to-day operational requirements. It was just a perfectly cyclical public health funding model.
Part 4. Daily Life and Social Order.
Maintaining a booming temple, a central bank, a university, and a hospital, well, that required a massive, highly organized workforce and a very rigid social order. The copper plates basically act as a medieval HR document. They list a bustling, incredibly diverse workforce required to keep the Sreevallabhan temple operational every single day. We see detailed records of not just priests, but musicians, dancers, meticulous accountants, cleaners, and various local chieftains who all had specific duties and hereditary roles tied directly to the temple's survival.
However, the sources also clearly detail the harsh realities of the agrarian hierarchy that fueled this entire system. At the top, you had the Oralalar, the Brahmin temple councils who were making unanimous, autonomous administrative decisions. Right below them were the Karalar, the tenants leasing the land and paying dues, often through hereditary service tenures known as Jivitam and Viruti, which cemented a strict feudal system. And at the bottom of this structure, the plates provide explicit evidence of caste slavery. They document the Polayas, who were attached tillers, treated as property, and directly transacted along with the land they worked. The ledgers impartially record this highly stratified society where every person was pretty much locked into their functional reality.
When you piece all these resolutions together, a really vivid picture emerges. The Sreevallabhan temple was the absolute nerve center for socio-economic life and theory of law. It wasn't just a part of the village, it essentially managed the village. From banking to healthcare, from education to enforcing social order, the temple committee managed it all, meticulously recording every decision on copper.
The Thiruvalla copper plates are an absolute gift to history. Because they were engraved in metal, they survived a millennia to tell us exactly how this ancient powerhouse functioned, long after the individuals who wrote them were gone. And, it really makes you think about our own society today. As we manage our banking, our healthcare, and our complex social structures on fleeting digital servers, what modern ledgers will survive 1,000 years to tell our story? It's definitely something to ponder. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you on the next one.